Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf Ayin Gimel. We are at the top of Ayin Gimel. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. So this Mishnah will differentiate between the situations when we can kill someone who is about to commit a sin and when we cannot. And the reason that we're talking about this now is that we've just covered two situations where we kill somebody essentially to enable them to avoid sinning. Or to prevent them from sinning in a worse way. The first, of course, in the name of our chapter has been Sora Mora. So that's a rebellious son who engages in stealing from his parents, buying, and he's addicted to wine and meat. And so as a result, he's going to continue his evil ways, and it will get even worse. And we said he'll end up, engaging in armed robbery on the highways, and that would be terrible. And so as a result, that's why the Ben Soromora is killed. And then we dealt with Hababa Machteret, somebody who digs into your home. And we say that that person who is engaged in that behavior is not worried about encountering you because he knows that he's going to kill you if he encounters you. And so as a result, you're allowed to get up and kill him. Again, except for in certain situations, either where you know for certain that the person's not going to try and kill you, or even if you're uncertain, if the person is your father or somebody who loves you greatly, and therefore you don't have to worry about them trying to kill you. So then it goes, the presumption goes in the other direction, and you are only allowed to kill that person if you're certain that they're after you. And so that that discussion now leads us to this discussion where we say there are certain situations where we're going to kill somebody to prevent them from sinning, and then we're going to highlight that there are some situations where we don't prevent them from sinning. So three in each direction. So let's take a look. We're at the Mishnah on the top of Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph. These are the ones that we save with their soul, meaning that we'll kill them. Go if somebody's chasing somebody to kill them. Or he's chasing somebody in order to engage in Mishkav Zachar, to lie with him carnally. So then that's also going to be something that we are allowed to kill the person. Again, it's not voluntary. The victim is not wanting it. And then third, and again, similar situation, it's a Na'ram Orasa and betrothed Na'ra. And again, we're saying that is absolutely something that you're allowed to kill, because here she's betrothed to somebody else, and now you're going to violate her. That would be terrible, and we're going to kill that person who tries to do that. So, but if somebody is running after an animal in order to engage in bestiality, or he's trying to desecrate the Shabbos, or he's going to worship idols, so we don't save these people from sinning at the cost of their lives. And so as a result, that's going to be, we're going to allow them to sin. And even though those sins will cost them their lives when they get eventually brought to court, that's how we're supposed to handle it. We're not supposed to get involved at the earlier stage and try and prevent it from happening. So Tana Rabbanan, Minayin l'rodiv achar chaver. So now the Gemara is going to seek a source for the Mishnah's various rulings. So we are going to start by detailing how we know about somebody who's trying to kill somebody. How do you know that you're allowed to kill that person? So minayin l'rodiv achar chaver lohargo. How do I know that if somebody is chasing somebody to kill them, shenitan lahatzilo b'nafsho, you're allowed to save that person's life through the other person's life, through the pursuer's life. You're allowed to save the victim through the pursuer's life. Don't stand on the blood of your neighbor, because of your friend, because that's, you're essentially standing by the blood of your friend if you did that, because he would, he's going to die if you don't do anything. So you can't just stand by. And so as a result, that we're going to say that you need to get involved and save your friend. So 1 second. That verse doesn't tell us don't stand by the blood of your friend, doesn't tell us this law. Look at Tanya. We need it for another brisa, which told us that we're supposed to do something else. Yes, it's about saving, but it's not about saving somebody who's threatened. It goes further than that. How do I know if somebody's sinking in the river? Oh, chaya, meaning that they're about to drown. Oh, chaya gorarto, or an animal is chasing them, wild animal is chasing them. Oh, listim ba in lalav, or armed robbers are coming upon him. So how do I know, shu chayav latzilo, that you need to save this guy? You're not allowed to stand by the blood of your friend. So that is teaching us when there isn't somebody that there isn't somebody chasing. So how do I know? So how do I know from that situation to the other situation? Because maybe in those situations, of course, you're supposed to save the person, but here, how do you know that you're allowed to kill the guy who is chasing who's causing the problem? So einachinami. So yes, you're absolutely right that we cannot learn from that pasuk that you're supposed to kill the guy who's pursuing someone to murder them. So how do I know that we can actually kill the pursuer if when the pursuer is trying to kill somebody, and we're allowed to use that as a basis to save the person? So now we're going to learn it from a kal v'chomer from na'ara ma'orasa. So that's one of the other three cases that we said we're allowed to do it in the Mishnah. Three cases in the Mishnah that we're allowed to rescue somebody. One is if the person's trying, we'll call this guy Peter the perpetrator. So Peter's trying to murder somebody, and so then we're going to kill Peter. Peter is trying to sodomize somebody, so we'll kill Peter. Or Peter is trying to violate a betrothed na'ara. Somebody who's already married to somebody else. In all three of those situations, our Mishnah tells us that we can kill Peter. So now we're going to say, we'll learn the fact that you can kill Peter if he's trying to murder somebody from the fact that we can kill Peter based on the fact that we're allowed to kill him if he is chasing a na'ara, a betrothed na'ara. So we're going to learn it from the na'ara ma'orasa. Ma na'ara ma'orasa shelo ba'ela pogma. When it comes to the na'ara ma'orasa, if the person's trying to rape her, so the worst that's going to happen, this is a terrible worst, but in any event, this is the way the Gemara is phrasing it, that all that's going to happen to her is she's going to be blemished. She's not going to be any longer a virgin. And so as a result, that's, it doesn't talk about the psychological ramifications. I mean, it's on some level, this is very harsh Gemara, but in any event. So Amra Torah Nitan Latzi Labanafsho, and yet the Torah says we're allowed to save her by killing him. Rodi Vacher Chaver Largo. So how much more so if somebody's actually trying to kill somebody that we would be allowed to save the victim at Peter's expense? The Gemara asks, 1 second, we have a general principle that we don't derive punishments for people through inferences, through logic alone. We're not going to use a kal v'chomer in order to make that conclusion. And so here, by the way, there are a couple of reasons. One is we may not be right in terms of the kal v'chomer, but also just because A is punished. What is the point of punishment? The point of punishment is to help the perpetrator on some level achieve atonement. And so there are some times where if you do a worse sin, one of the examples that's given is we talked about previously is where is somebody engages in molech with all their children. So that's we say that person is not subject to the death penalty. And maybe the answer is because it's so bad that we actually say that there's no hope for that person. But in any event, the bottom line is that we don't derive punishments on the basis of an inference. And in particular, and even though you could argue, well, this isn't an inference about punishment, this is an inference about saving, but on some level, the fact that we are allowing the killing of this person is a punishment, and so as a result, the Gemara rejects it. So, but we're not done, because we're going to have a third explanation, a third approach, and that third approach is going to be successful. Debei Rabbi Tana, so the Rebbe's yeshiva said, Hakeshahu, it's not that we're going to learn it through an inference, but rather there is a hekesh. The same word appears in connection Well, let's take a look. The Gemara is going to tell us what the hekesh is. Ki kasher yakum ish al re'ehu urtzacho nefesh. For when a man rises up against his fellow and murders him. So, that sentence, even though it sounds like it's talking about a murder case, that sentence is in the context of the Na'ara HaMorasa. V'chi ma lamadnu mirotzeach. But what are we learning about a betrothed nara from the laws of murder? So me'ata harei zeh balu lamed. So it seems like this is coming to teach us v'nimtza lamed, and it comes to teach us something about nara, and it comes to teach us something about a murder. Makish rotzeach le'nara hamorasa. It connects the two together. Ma nara hamorasa nitan lahatzila b'nafsho. Af rotzeach nitan lahatzila b'nafsho. So just as a nara can be saved if somebody's coming upon her to rape her by killing the Peter the rapist, but instead, so similarly, if Peter is trying to murder somebody, we're going to be allowed, Peter the perpetrator is going to be allowed to be murdered as well. Okay, so now we understand how we have this connection, and we'll be able to learn murder from a case of Na'ara Marasa. But how do you know that the Na'ara Marasa, you're allowed to kill the perpetrator, Peter the perpetrator, in that situation? So Kidatana Debe Rabbi Yishmael. So we have the yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael teaching the following: Tana Debe Rabbi Yishmael, the Ein Moshiala, that she has no rescuer. Again, this also is in the context of the Na'ara Morasa. Let me scroll my screen so that catch up. So Na'ara Morasa, this is a pasuk Perek Bet, pasuk Kav Zayin in Dvarim, and that the point is that verse, which is in context of Na'ara Morasa, she doesn't have a rescuer. Hayesh lo Moshiala. What if she did have a rescuer? So B'chol davar sheyachol la'oshia. The implication is that if there was a rescuer present, he can do whatever is necessary in order to save her. Exactly. Now, okay, so let's pause there, because Tosfos here asks an interesting question. When we say in our Mishnah, the Eluhein shematzilun otan benafshan, these are the ones that we save with their soul, so with their lives. So the point is there are two pronouns. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. There are two pronouns in that phrase. We are saving them from with their lives. Are they going on the same person? Are they going on the different people? And let's walk through the logic in Tosfos, and you'll hear it. Lahatzilo benafsho. This concept of saving him with the life of him, right? So mashmaut halashon shematzilin hanirdaf. This is the fourth Tosfos on fourth Tosfos on Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, that we're trying to save the victim with the life of benafsho shel rodef, with the life of the chaser. So aval lo yitachein lefarish kain berodef achar habehema. But it doesn't make sense to say that in the context of somebody who's chasing after an animal. Now, in the end, we say that if you're chasing after an animal, we don't kill the person. But the point is that it's not about saving the life of the animal. That's not what we're talking about. So it doesn't make sense in that context. The kiyotzeba, and in the other cases, it also doesn't make sense, because there's no victim that whose life you're trying to save. So lefikach nira lefarish d'matzilin es ha'adam min ha'aveira. That actually what we're really doing here is we're trying to save the perpetrator, Peter, from sinning. B'nafsho shel atzmo, using his own life. Aval kashem min ha'ara ma'orasa. But the problem is that we have a problem from the Na'ara Morasa case. Because in that case, the Ka'amar shenitan lahatzila benafsho, it specifically says that we are going to save her with his soul. So there, it's clear that we're talking about the victim. So So that is all that Tosfos says on that. Now, Tosfos is going to now ask a question. We'll go through that in a moment. But what I find interesting about that is the fact that here, on some level, we're asking ourselves that we're going to do something quite remarkable. That here, Peter the perpetrator is about to violate Shabbos or worship an idol. And we're actually thinking that, you know what? Better for us to kill him before he engages in the sin than for us to allow him to get. Now, of course, in many of these cases, we're going to say, no, we're going to allow him to engage in the sin, but in any event. But when there's an actual victim, then we now change our tune slightly and we focus on the victim. So it's an interesting thing that we're both focusing on the victim and the person themselves. The Im Tomer, now Tosfos continues, smack middle of the fourth Tosfos on Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph. V'im Tomer b'kevan demachacha yalfinan derotzech nitan lahatzilo b'nafsho. Lama li kra b'tovei b'nar v'chaya gorarto. Hashta chavero b'chaya gorarto v'hashta chavero chorig kedei lahatzil hasam lo kol shekain. So we're about to see in just a moment that if somebody is seeing somebody drown in a river or wild beasts or people are going to come to kill you, that you can say that you're obligated to save the person. Shouldn't that be a kal v'chomer from this situation, from the fact that we're told that just like you rescue a Na'ara or Asai, you have to rescue a nirdaf, a person who's being chased? So, meaning if you need to, on some level, put yourself at risk in order to stop the murderer, and actually you can go so far as to kill the guy, right, well, then of course you're supposed to go and dive into the water and rescue somebody who's drowning. So why do we need a pasuk at all to teach those laws? So v'lo mistaber l'meimer dechavero horeg tvei la'afrushe mi'isura. And don't tell me that, well, maybe it's because we're trying to also stop the murderer from performing the bad act, and that's why there's a special rule that you're supposed to save the guy. That doesn't make any sense. Rather, clearly there's something about saving a person. That I might have thought that if we just use the kal v'chomer of the obligation to save somebody from somebody who's chasing them, from Peter the perpetrator, that if I'm obligated in that situation, well, then I'm also obligated to save Debbie the drowned, the person who's drowning. So the point is that and maybe it's just a positive, but if I choose not to, so fine, I don't fulfill a positive commandment, but I haven't violated any law. So Kamash Malan, Tosfos is telling us, Hasam de over bilav, de lo ta'amod al dam reyecha. No, what it's telling us is that actually this is standing on we're told, don't stand idly by when your brother's blood is at risk. And so the point is that not only is there a positive commandment for you to go and rescue the person, but you would be violating a negative commandment if you do nothing. So that's just I thought that was an interesting Tosfos and worth going through to
a life lesson.
Yeah, absolutely, and a tremendous life lesson. So now we're going to go back to that statement, to that brisa that we said earlier, where we cited Lo ta'amod al dam reyecha as proof that you need to save a drowning person, to save a person who's from wild animals, and save a person who is being attacked. So gufa minayin laroa es chavero shehu tovea benahar o chaya gorarto o listim bayin alav shu chaya lahatzilo. How do I know we need to save the drowner, the victim of the wild beasts, or the victim of the bandits? Should be Talmud Lomer lo ta'amod al dam reyecha. You're not supposed to stand. You're idly by. You're the blood of your friend. V'hamei hacha nafka. 1 second. Is that really the source of that lesson? Mehasam nafka. We have another pasuk that says that we're supposed to do that, because we're now going to quote a brisa. Avedas gufo minayin. How do I know that you're supposed to rescue somebody and because they've lost themselves on some level, right? If somebody who's drowning is about to lose their soul, and we have an obligation to return things. So it says, Talmud Lomer b'hashevo solo. You have to return something to him. If somebody's about to lose something, you need to return it. Now, what's the worst thing a person could lose is their life. And so as a result, when the person's life is at stake, you have to return it. Indeed, I believe Rambam says that when it comes to a doctor rescuing people and healing people, that it's a fulfillment of this command, that it's a fulfillment of the command of returning somebody's life
Even
to
on
somebody.
Shabbos.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, even on Shabbos. Well, ima hasam haba mina hani mili benafshe. 1 second. If I only learned that you have to return it to him, that only applies when the person himself can do it. Aval mitrach umigar agore emalo. But maybe I don't have an obligation to actually go and hire somebody to help somebody else. So Kamash Malan comes to teach us that no, we even have that obligation to pay, to hire somebody to help us rescue someone who's in trouble. And so really a remarkable lesson that, when and it highlights the amazing thing that we can do if we help somebody with their medical bills or enable them to get an appointment, etc. That is really a kind of a rescuing and returning something and a fulfillment of the wonderful mitzvah of Hashevo Solo. Okay.
I heard a share by Rabbi Dr. Moshe Tendler that this creates a communal obligation for universal health insurance.
Well, I didn't want to quite go that far, but having, hearing that Rabbi Tendler says yes, that it does go that far, it doesn't surprise me. You can see very easily how one can go from that level to from this Gemara to that extreme. And I think
it's not a big jump.
No, it's not a big jump at all. Not a big jump at all. So because the question is how do we accomplish this? And one of the most effective ways of accomplishing it would be a universal health care system. Okay, so Tana Rabbanan. So we're going to now expand on what we saw in our Mishnah. That there aren't just 3 in each direction. We're going to reference the first 3, but we're going to end up with 5 in each direction. So let's take a look and let's see. So Tana Rabbanan, Echad harodev achar chaber lahargo, ba'achar hazachar, ba'achar hanar marasa. Those are the 3 cases in our Mishnah. If you're chasing somebody to kill them, to sodomize, or to have relations with the betrothed na'ara. So, but also ba'achar chayve misos based in, or after. If and Rashi explains that we're talking about a woman, where the victim would be a woman who having relations with her would result in if it was voluntary, with having the court ordered execution, or with a woman where the relations would be punishable with kares, matzil and osan binafsho. So we save him, or save the victims with the pursuer's life. And so again, otan is plural, so benafsho is singular. So it seems like we're telling again that the otan in this case is in fact the victims, as opposed to earlier where we said that maybe the nafsho, mitzilian oto benafsho, could mean that we save the perpetrator from himself on some level. So those are now 5 cases where we are going to save someone by killing the perpetrator. Almana l'kohen gadol. But if a kohen gadol is approaching and going to have relations with a widow, gerusha v'chalutza l'kohen hedjot, or a regular kohen is going to have relations with a divorcee or a chalutza, a woman whose husband died without children, and she was supposed to marry the brother, and the brother does chalutza, so now she can marry whomever she wants. That's almost like a divorce, and therefore she's not allowed to marry a regular kohen. And so in those situations, ein matzilin otah b'nafsho, we don't save them from the pursuer. We don't save these women at the, using by killing Peter, the perpetrator. Nevda ba avera. If now, when it comes to the sin that they've already done, meaning that the woman has already been violated, ein matzilano tabenafsha. We no longer save her from another attack. Yesh la Moshia, if she has a way to be rescued without killing the perpetrator, then we don't kill him. We have to find another way to rescue her. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Av HaOmeres, Hanichalo, Shaloli Argeno. And similarly, if the woman tells the rescuers, listen, don't touch him, I'm worried he's going to kill me, so then we will also not allowed to kill the Peter, the perpetrator. So minahani mili, how do we know all of these details? So Amar Kra ulena'ara lo taseh davar ein lena'ara chet mavis. But to the na'ara, you're not going to do anything because she has not done any sin, any death-deserving sin. So one very important point in this verse, although the Gemara includes the hey in connection with both times it says na'ara, in the Torah itself, it does not have the hey at the end of the word, meaning that one might think that you should read it as na'ar, a young boy, meaning a male, as opposed to na'ara, meaning the young girl. So what do we do with that? So na'ar zezachor. So the na'ar tells us that if in fact somebody is pursuing somebody for sodomy, so then you're allowed to save the person. Na'ara, zo na'ara morasa. Well then, and then of course, you read it as na'ara, so that refers to the betrothed na'ara that we're allowed to save her. Chet elu chave krisos. The fact that it refers to a sin, that tells us that those who are subject to kares, you're allowed to save by killing the perpetrator. Mahaves elu chave misos based in. That tells us that those who are subject to the death penalty with this relationship could be saved by killing the perpetrator. So kol hani lamali, why do I need every one of these words? Maybe we could learn the other three laws from one of them. Exactly. So tzrichi, we need them. Now remember, we already know the law of the pursuer when it comes to murder from Na'ara Morasa. So that's why that one isn't mentioned here, right? We don't reference somebody pursuing somebody to kill them because we know that directly from Na'ara Morasa based on the Hekesh that we saw earlier, because it references a murderer in connection with the Na'ara Morasa. But why do we need all these other lessons? Tzrichi, we actually need them to ikas of Brahmana Na'ar, because if the Torah had only just taught us Na'ar Mishum Delav Orche, maybe I might think that you're allowed to save a male from sodomy because that is an unusual kind of attack. Aval Na'ara de Orcha, but maybe it's not unusual, unfortunately, for women to be sexually assaulted. So amalo, maybe, and in fact, that kind of relationship itself is not abnormal, and therefore, therefore maybe we would not be allowed to save her. So therefore, the Torah says Na'ara. V'ikas of Rachmana Na'ara. Mishum de kapagimla. Not big, and maybe if the Torah had just told us Na'ara, I might think that only there we're allowed to kill the person because he is going to cause a blemish in her. So aval nar de lo kapagimla, but when it comes to somebody pursuing for sodomy, there's not going to be a blamed name. She's not. Whereas she loses her status as a virgin, the man, there is no status as a virgin as a male, and there is no status of a male that has not been sodomized. And so as a result, there's no practical ramification on his life if he ends up being victimized. And so as a result, aim alone, maybe I would not kill the guy. So therefore, we need to have both Na'ar and Na'ara. Because of Rachmana Hani, and if we had both of these, so then Mishum Dahai Lav Orchehu V'Hal Kapagim Law. I might have thought that it's only because in these two cases, either it's not usual or it's causing a blemish of al shara rayos. But if you were to have other relationships, so for example, if a man is chasing somebody who's married, fully married, and wants to have relations with her, or if a man is chasing his mother in order to have relations with her, or any of the other, oh no, the mother I think is not subject to, I don't remember. So maybe mother's not a good example, but other relationships that you're not allowed to have that would be punishable by kares or the death penalty. So then you would also, maybe those would not be, you would not have to, you would not be allowed to kill Peter, the perpetrator. So the orchaihu below nafish pigmaihu. So they, in those situations, they are a natural way of having relations, and they are not creating a blemish. So amalo, maybe I would not be allowed to kill them. So kazav rachmana chet. That's why the Torah had to say also sin right now. The ikas of rachmana chet. Now, if the Torah just said sin, hava mina afilu chayve lavin, I might have thought that even something that's prohibited by the Torah as just a lav, such as a Kohen with a Grusha, a Kohen marrying a divorcee. So therefore, Kasav Rachmana Mavis. That's why the Torah wrote that it's got to be a death deserving sin. Because of Rachmana Mavis. And if the Torah had just written Mavis, that it's death deserving, Hava Amina Chayve Misos based in Chayve Krisos Lo. I might have thought that only if it's a death deserving punishment where the Basin has to kill the guy. But if it's just something that is subject to kares, maybe I would not. So Kasav Rachmana Chet. So that's why the Torah also wrote Chet, sin. And so as a result, we end up learning all four items. The lichter Ravana Rachmana Chet Mavis, below by Nar V'Nara. So in second, now let's go back and do the other direction. Why not just say that you can teach us the Chet Mavet, and we'll know any situation where the victim and the perpetrator would be subject to the death penalty or subject to kares, you'd have to save the person. Well, guess what? Both Mishkav Zachar, both sodomy and the rape of the Na'ara Morasa are both situations that are subject to the kares or the death penalty. So as a result, you would be able to, you would know both of those laws from just telling me Chet Mavis. So, Ein Hachanami, you're absolutely right. We don't need to tell, the pasuk did not need to tell us Na'ar and Na'ara in order to tell us the fundamental rules of Mishka Zachar and Na'ara Morasa, that you're allowed to save the victim by killing the perpetrator. We would know that from Chet Mavis. But the Ella, Na'ar v'Na'ara, that one of them comes to tell us that you're not allowed to engage in, that you're not allowed to kill somebody who's going to engage in idol worship, because the point is that it's telling us specifically the Nar case, the Mishkav Zachar case, and the Na'ara case, where all of these cases are, there's a victim. But when there's idol worship or bestiality or Shabbos, there is no victim. And so as a result, that's not going to be a problem. Now, it's interesting, and Rashi points it out, that essentially one of them seems to come to teach us Shabbos in addition to something else. And Rashi points out that really Shabbos we would learn from the fact that idol worship is not enough, because we are about to see that there is a connection between idol worship and Shabbos. They both have the word chilul in connection with it. And so as a result, the only reason I would ever think that Shabbos would be subject to killing somebody who's going to violate it would be because we're supposed to kill somebody who engages in idol worship. And we're going to see that right now. But the bottom line is that without that, we would never really think that Shabbos would be subject to it. And so as a result, we can learn Shabbos as an extra item without needing a separate word for it. Okay. But now the Gemara asks, "Fil Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai de Omer Ovid Avos Kochavim Nitan Lahatilo Benafsho Lamali." Well, 1 second. Why do I need Na'ar and Na'ara according to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai? He says that actually to kill, you're allowed to kill, and you're supposed to kill somebody who's going to worship an idol in order to save them, in order to prevent them from engaging in idol worship. So what do we do with the extra word of Na'ar and Na'ara? So chad l'me'ute behema, v'chad l'me'ute Shabbos. One, we need to exclude the bestiality, and one to exclude a violation of Shabbos. Now, salka daitach amini teise Shabbos. And why do I need specifically to tell me about Shabbos? Meaning, why do I need an extra word, whereas before we didn't? So this is where Rashi got the comment that he made a moment ago that I cited regarding why Shabbos was not needing an extra word before, but now it does. Because I might have thought Teisi Shabbos mechilo chilo me'avodas kochavim, that we should use a gzeira shava and say just as it says chilo by Shabbos and it says chil by avodah zarah. So therefore, just as you're allowed to kill the potential idol worshiper before he engages in idol worship, so too you're allowed to kill the potential Shabbos violator before he desecrates Shabbos. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Amar Mechalas Shabbos Nitan Latzilo Benafsho. Whoa, what about Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon? Because you know what he says? He says, not only are you allowed to kill the idol worship the way Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, but he says you're allowed to even kill the Shabbos violator before he violates Shabbos. And one can understand why, because of the Gezerah Shava of Chilo Chilo. So what does he do with the words Na'ar, Na'ara? And how do we know that he says that? Because he specifically says that you're supposed to learn from the Gezerah Shava of Chilul by Avodah Zarah to Chil by Shabbos, so that you're supposed to save the person, just as you save the person to prevent him from engaging in idol worship. You save the person to prevent them from engaging in violation of Shabbos. So Ma'ikal Meimer, why do we need Na'ar and Na'ara? So Chad L'Mu'ute Behema, one comes to exclude the Behema. The Idach, Aidi, because of Rahmana Nar, because of Nami Na'ara. No, the point is that once the Torah, so we need one to tell us bestiality. But once the Torah goes out of its way to say something in an odd format, so now, of course, you're going to have to also say the item that you're talking about, meaning that when we say in the Torah, the context is Na'ara. And so as a result, I'm sorry for not having scrolled. So as a result, that teaches us that, in fact, you're going to that we need the word Na'ara for the particular context in which we find ourselves, namely the Na'ara Morasa. So we learn something from the fact that it was written as Na'ar, but there's nothing special about the fact that we read it as Na'ara. And so as a result, we only have one lesson to learn. Okay, so now back to the last clause of the Brisa. Remember, the Brisa had Rabbi Yehuda say the following, and we're going to quote it right now. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Af haomeres hanicha lo shelo yargenu, that also we're not going to kill somebody if the woman who's the victim says, listen, don't kill him. I'm worried about what he's going to do to me. So b'mai kimiflagi, what are Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim and the Tanakama arguing about? Amar Rava explains, b'makpedes al pigma, that umanicha so shelo yahargena, that when an ordinary person is about to be blemished, maybe she's going to allow, here in this case, she's allowing the pursuer to violate her anyway, in order that he not kill her. And so Rabbanan, and so that's why. So Rabbanan Savre, a pigma kapid Rahmana. The rabbis say, listen, we don't care why what she thinks
consented
that she consented and why she consented. It's okay, because the bottom line is she's going to become a victim here and be blemished and no longer be a virgin. So as a result of Hare Makpedes al Pigma, and she does care, because even though she's allowing herself to be subject to this, she really doesn't want it.
Correct.
She just is saying it to save her life. So therefore, the Torah allows us to continue to kill the pursuer. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Hi de ka'amar rachmana katle." Though, why does the Torah allow us to kill the pursuer? It allows us to kill the pursuer, mishum demasra nafsha lekatla, because maybe she would prefer to die than to be violated. And as a result, because she may prefer to die rather than be violated, and as a result, the perpetrator is willing to, and maybe willing to, kill her in order to to be able to accomplish the violation. So as a result, it's essentially like the pursuer in connection with the death penalty case, or maybe even back to the Bam Machteres, the person who's digging underneath. We presume that he's going to try and kill the person, and so as a result, we're allowed to kill him. But this woman, lo masr nafsha lekatala, she isn't willing to give up her life to avoid being blemished, and so as a result, that's why we're going to say we can't allow us to kill the guy, because the whole reason that we allowed us to kill the guy is because maybe he would kill her in her defending herself against being violated. But now she's not willing to do that, and so as a result, we shouldn't be willing to kill the guy either. Okay, so Amrle Rav Papa Abaye, Amana Lechoin Gadol Nami Kapagimla. Well, 1 second. If all we care about is the blemish, and the blemish is what allows us to kill the perpetrator, why don't we say that there's a blemish when a Kohen has a relationship with a divorcee? When a Kohen Gadol has a relationship with a widow, because she then becomes a halala, and she's not allowed to have truma any longer, even if she's the daughter of a Kohen. And so why not say that also is a blemish? So Amrlei, apigma rabba kapid rachmana. No, the Torah is concerned about a significant blemish. Apigma zuta lo kapid rachmana. But when it comes to a lesser blemish, so then the Torah is not so concerned. Let's take a look at Rashi, and with this we'll end. So apigma rabba. So kigon arayis. This is about 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, about 18 lines up from the bottom of the narrow lines on Ayin Gimel Amud Bet. Apigma Rabba Kigon Arayas, that what's considered a large blemish, like like the prohibited relationships, decreasus that get kares, or worse, the death penalty, shehein chamuros, because those are more severe. Vahavi charafta, and they create disgrace. Meruba, significant. Shahavlad mamzer, because the child will become a mamzer. V'nasis zona, and she is treated as a zona. Be'ilato, as a result of the relationship. Aval kohen gadol ba'almana eina nasa zona ela chalala. But when it comes to the kohen gadol with the widow, she only becomes a chalala. Is it bad? Yes. But is it that bad? No. And so as a result, that's where we're going to draw the line. Do you have a question?
Just something tangential to this with modern day Israel, with all the reasons that we just discussed on why it's permissible to take a life. A certain ultra-Orthodox sect refuses to even go into the service. I mean, there's some.
I hear you. So it's important to understand that we also have seen in throughout the Gemara the role that the people who are learning Torah play in the providing defense. So the question is whether all those people are really learning Torah. So that a fair.
I know they're not. I have a cousin who is a Haredi who's not serving in the army, and he's not a full-time learner. He works for a living.
Yeah. So there you go. So 100%.
That's a greater discussion than this time.
Absolutely.
Right
It's
here.
certainly a greater discussion than this time. But all right. So we're not yet finished analyzing the brisa that details when we can kill someone to prevent a sin. But for the continuation of that discussion, because the next little piece is going to continue on to tomorrow's daf, we're going to pause here and stay tuned for tomorrow's daf. Shabbat shalom.
Have a good Shabbos.
Have a wonderful Shabbos, everyone.